Hi girls, Ms. Gaska here. Today I'm going to go over 8th grade week 2, activity 4.7, Elements of Humor, Comic Characters and Caricatures. Our learning targets are to define and recognize comic characters and caricatures, and to collaborate to analyze characters and caricatures in a literary text. Comic caricatures and characters. Characterization is the way a writer reveals a character's personality through what the character says, thinks, and feels, or through how the character looks, acts, and interacts with others. So I want you to pay particular attention to this because you're going to be learning about it over and over and over again as you go through your English classes throughout middle school and high school. Characterization. So, a caricature is a pictorial, written and or acted representation of a person who exaggerates characteristics or traits for comic effect. Caricatures are often used in cartoon versions of people's faces and usually exaggerate features for comic effect. So let's look at this side note here. To use a caricature or caricaturize someone is to exaggerate or imitate certain characteristics to create a comic or distorted idea of a person. So you guys might have heard of caricatures before. If you've gone to an amusement park like Busch Gardens, then you've seen people drawing pictures of customers with big heads, and they influence or exaggerate certain features, like maybe they have big teeth or big ears or something like that. And like the picture always looks like them basically, but a little bit goofy too. That's what a caricature is. But you can also create a caricature not only through pictures, but by written or acted representation. So you're going to be viewing some comic scenes. So as you open the viewing sequence, you're going to take notes in the graphic organizer. So I'm going to post these on Canvas for you. But one of them is going to be Bart Simpson, obviously. So he is repetitively writing sentences on the board that say, and then you're going to put what it is that they say. And then your interpretation, this is their example. He is the stereotype of a bad kid in the classroom. So then Homer Simpson, you're going to describe the characterization here, and then your interpretation, like what does that mean to you? So like what is he doing? What are they showing him doing? And then what's your interpretation of his personality based on what they're showing him doing? Marge, what is she doing? And then what's your interpretation of what she's doing? And then Lisa, what is she doing? What is your interpretation of what she's doing? And then finally the whole family, what are they doing? And what is the interpretation that they are doing? Or your interpretation of what they're doing. So what we're going to do is think about what life or what truth about life an author is trying to convey through humor. So think about that clip that you saw from The Simpsons, and over here jot down a few notes about what comment that you think the author was trying to say about life of the average American family. So once you jot down those notes, we're going to move forward to previewing our next activity. So in this activity, you're going to be reading a short story and thinking about the author's use of characterization. And then you're going to be setting a purpose for reading. As you read the short story, underline words and phrases that reveal something about Nuttall and the niece, or Nuttall? I don't know how to say that. So we're going to underline words and phrases that reveal something about Nuttall and the niece. We're going to circle unknown words and phrases as always and try to determine what they mean. And so I really want to point something out to you guys real quick that the Springboard assignment failed to mention, but that I think will be helpful. So oftentimes an author is going to have two types of characterization. There's called direct characterization, and then there's indirect characterization. So direct characterization is often used to describe how somebody looks in most cases, because mature writing isn't going to describe a personality as much as they're going to show a personality. So when the author is giving direct characterization, they might say straight out, she has black hair that falls in waves on her back, and she has big brown eyes. So that would be an example of direct characterization, telling you straight up what that character looks like without beating around the bush, okay? So direct characterization, I'm going to write my notes down here, is usually used for describing appearance, though not always. And it is when the author tells the reader straight out what the character looks like or what traits they have. So for instance, if they said, so-and-so is a nice boy, then that would be a direct characterization because the author is just telling you straight up that their character is nice. They're not really going to do that in well-written text, but sometimes you'll have another character say, oh, such and such is nice. Now that is indirect characterization, and I'll tell you why. So sometimes the author can use other characters as conduits to tell you about what another character is like. So indirect characterization is when the author hints about what a character is like through certain methods. And here are those the main methods. How the character acts, what the character thinks, what the character says, what others say about the character, how others treat the character. So you're going to be looking up those different, or not looking up, you're going to be noticing those different things as you read. There's different things that could tell you about a character. For instance, in the first chapter of The Hate U Give, Star talks about how she is going to a party. She normally doesn't go to parties. She's dressed in a hoodie and jeans, and her friend says she looks a mess. So we're getting all of this different information. Star tells us straight up that she doesn't belong at the party. She tells us that the room smells bad because it smells like marijuana smoke. So we could guess from that she probably doesn't smoke. She tells us that the drink is way too strong, which tells us that she probably doesn't drink. So we're already getting this information about the way Star conducts her social life. And then she talks about the way she's dressed, and her friend talks about the way she's dressed, which shows that she isn't trying to impress anybody when she goes to a party. She doesn't want to show off. She's not really like a very showy kind of person. She just kind of likes to blend in. How others treat her, like other characters are ignoring her at one point. So she kind of is like a quiet, introverted type of person. So we can gather all of that based on this party scene. And none of it is said straight up to us. Star never tells me in the story when I'm reading it, oh, I'm Star and I'm shy. That doesn't happen. She's giving us characterization through all of these different things. So when we're underlining words that reveal something about them, these are oftentimes the things that are going to be doing the revealing. So let's go ahead and look at this piece. I'm going to read the first few paragraphs with you and show you how I would annotate it, and then the rest is up to you. So this is called The Open Window. So let's begin. My aunt will be down presently, Mr. Nuttall, said a very self-possessed young lady of 15. In the meantime, you must try and put up with me. So we already have been told that there is a young lady who's 15 years old and she's self-possessed, meaning she is kind of, she only thinks about herself. So I'm going to circle self-possessed because you might not have known that before. And then she says, in the meantime, you must try and put up with me. So that means that she thinks that she's annoying because she says, put up with me. So the speaker is a 15-year-old self-possessed young lady who thinks she may annoy the man to whom she is speaking. So I already have a little bit of information about a character. Frampton Nuttall endeavored to say the correct something which should duly flatter the niece of the moment without unduly discounting the aunt that was to come. Privately, he doubted more than ever whether these formal visits on succession of total strangers would do much toward helping the nerve cure which he was supposed to be undergoing. So we have here endeavored. You may not know what that word means. You may not know what duly means. Unduly is obviously the opposite. discounting in this case. Succession. So I'm going to point out the things I think show the character of Frampton Nuttall. So we have his name, first of all, so that's something we don't have about the niece. He wants to say something flattering, so he's like, I guess I would say maybe a polite person, because he wants to encourage, like, he wants to say that, you know, she's not going to annoy him at all, like he wants to be nice. But he also doesn't want to say something that's not going to discount the aunt. And the fact that he's trying to figure out what to say tells me he's a little bit indecisive. So then he's doubting about whether he's going to be getting the nerve cure that he wants. So he's a skeptical person. I'm going to jot that down over here. I know that's a lot to get out of a one paragraph, but I'm telling you it's all there. So we have his name, Frampton Nuttall. He is a nice person, but indecisive, which we could tell, like I said, because he wants to say something nice, but isn't sure if he should, and that he is also skeptical about the treatment that he's going to receive. So I know how it will be, his sister had said when he was preparing to migrate to this rural retreat. You will bury yourself down there and not speak to a living soul, and your nerves will be worse than ever from moping. I shall just give you letters of introduction to all the people I know there. Some of them, as far as I can remember, were quite nice. So here we have, you know what migrate means. You know what rural means. Retreat, you know what that means. Moping, you know what that means. So I think here we don't really have any unfamiliar vocabulary words, but we're getting a little bit more. So he's reflecting on what his sister said before he had left to come down to where he is now. She said, you will bury yourself down there and not speak to a living soul, meaning like he's very reclusive. He doesn't socialize very much. He mostly sticks to himself. And his nerves will be worse than ever from moping. So he tends to mope a lot, which causes him to get really anxious. And then his sister offers to give him letters of introduction to everybody that she knows from that area, and then some of them are really nice. So here I have some more information about this Nuttall guy. We know that he is reclusive, meaning he sticks in his own house, isn't very social, and that he is likely depressed and anxious, because it says that all he really does is stick in his house and mope, and then it causes him to get like a nerve issue. Like he gets really nervous. So then about the sister, she kind of is a little skeptical about how well his treatment is going to be. She she kind of underestimates possibly how the guy is going to act. Like she's doubtful that it's going to work. Doubtful, skeptical, devalues her brother's ability to live differently in another place, in a new place. So as you continue, go on and continue to add notes about the characters, what you can decipher about the characters, and then meet me down here at the questions. So for number 3, it says, why is it significant that Frampton Nuttall is described as undergoing a nerve cure in paragraph 2? So predict how this detail could be used for a humorous effect. So for the nerve cure, you're going to go back and find where it says that in paragraph 2, and then make a prediction about how you think it could be used for a humorous effect. For number 4, it says, what phrase in paragraph 3 helps you understand what moping means? So you're going to be looking for the phrase that kind of helps indicate the definition of that word in paragraph 3. For number 5, it says, what is the meaning of the word habitation in paragraph 9? What clues in the text leading up to and including paragraph 9 support your response? So you might want to look up the word habitation first and then find the different clues that kind of contribute to that, to your understanding of that definition. For number 6, it says, what tone does the niece convey with her description of the tragedy in paragraph 14? What effect might this precise detail have on her guest? So in paragraph 14, you're going to be looking for the tragedy and then look for the tone that the niece is using. And then decide how that detail has affected her guest, how that tone has affected her guest as well. Number 7 says, what context clues tell you the meaning of the word bog in paragraph 14? So go to paragraph 14, find the word bog, and then look for words that might give you a hint about what bog is. If you're not sure, look it up and then find clues in that paragraph that tell you what that word means. In number 8, it says, why is it horrible for Frampton to listen to Mrs. Sappleton, as noted in paragraph 19? So you're going to go to paragraph 19 and look for where it says it was horrible, and then figure out why it's horrible, and then jot that down there. For number 9, it says, what is the meaning of the word ailment in paragraph 20? What clues in the text support your response? So you're going to be looking for the word ailment in paragraph 20 and figuring out what that word means based on the clues in the text. For number 10, it says, what does the author tell the reader in his narration that makes Frampton Nuttall appear silly and pathetic in paragraph 20? Why? So you're going to be looking at paragraph 20 and figuring out what about that guy makes him seem silly and pathetic in that particular paragraph, and then why. For number 11, why is Nuttall's reaction to the return of the men in paragraph 25 comic rather than appropriate? So you're going to be looking at paragraph 25 and figuring out why it seems more comic than appropriate. And then in 12, what aspects of the niece's character are revealed in her last line of dialogue in paragraph 28? So you're going to go to paragraph 28, find her last line of dialogue, meaning the last thing that she says, and then try to figure out what that tells us about who she is as a person. So working from the text, so for each unfamiliar word you circled, write a synonym in the My Notes section. Then, for number 14, you're going to do a quick write using the 3-2-1 reflection. 3, you're going to describe 3 things you notice about the author's use of humor in the story, 2 characters you can picture most vividly, and 1 question you have. You could just jot that over here in the side notes. Then, we're going to use this graphic organizer to express ideas you have about the characters and humor in this text. So then here are the details. How does the author develop the character? Do they develop them through their actions, their words, their thoughts, etc.? For characters, describe the characters using precise adjectives. Would any of them be considered a caricature? Remember what a caricature is. It's when parts of a character are exaggerated for comedic effect. And then interpretation. What truth about life is revealed through this comic character? So what are they trying to say about life by having this character in the story? And you're doing that for Frampton Nuttall, Mrs. Sappleton, and then the niece. Elements of humor. So explaining why something is funny can be a challenge, but there are some common things authors do that usually make people laugh. Writers create humor by focusing on descriptions and actions that make characters funny, comic situations, and comic language. Humor often depends on some combination of these 3 elements. So actions, comic situations, comic language. So preview the Elements of Humor graphic organizer in Activity 4.11 and add notes about the comic characters and caricatures you explored in this activity. So as you explore each new element of humor in the upcoming activities, return to that graphic organizer to add notes about your new learning. Then we have Check Your Understanding. Mr. Nuttall might be considered a caricature of a nervous person. Find examples in the story that support this idea and then note them, not in your Reader-Writer notebook, but here underneath the Check Your Understanding section. And that's all there is for Activity 4.7. I hope that this was informative, and if you have any questions left, just feel free to ask. Thanks, and take care.